have the fashion cafe, right, going.
Yeah, that's something totally different.
I know that's something totally different, but it made me think that maybe there's a conspiracy here where you fatten people up at the cafe.
At the height of her fame, the supermodel graced over 1,000 magazine covers, walked for every major designer, and unknowingly became the target of a £5 million kidnap plot. How does someone go from fashion icon to the center of a criminal scheme and still stay untouched by the chaos?
What is the small town?
It's called Rheinberg.
Oh,
It's
Rheinberg.
on the other side of the Rhine.
Oh, yeah. And is it lovely there? Is it picturesque?
Yeah, it's a beautiful old town with one church and one cinema and one ice cream.
Yeah.
Claudia Schiffer grew up in Rheinberg, Germany, a quiet little town that most people had never even heard of. Picture a serious-minded teenager, focused on school and dreams of becoming a lawyer, working in her father's law office and thinking about courtroom drama instead of catwalks. But life had other ideas. When she was 17, one night in Dusseldorf, she was dancing in a nightclub to You Spin Me Round when a scout from Metropolitan Models, Mikel Leviton, just happened to be there. He walked up, introduced himself, and asked if she'd ever thought about modeling. Claudia thought he was joking and even suggested he talk to her friend instead, joking that she wasn't tall or glamorous enough.
Claudia Schiffer for you. You can come in, but the fashion cafe is going well? Everything's good there?
Yeah, and you can have salads too.
Oh, okay. But there's
Yeah, it's
there's
going
food
great.
for it, but it's not all food for models too. There's stuff that, the rest of us.
Everything.
That Elle France cover came next, literally catapulting her into the world she had never imagined. She later reflected that life changed forever, and that first Elle cover felt unforgettable. She said it stared at her from newsstands as she walked past them in 2003, the streets of Paris. Suddenly, the girl who once saw herself as destined for a courtroom was rubbing shoulders with top photographers, designers, and fashion editors. Work came fast. In 1989, she landed the Guess campaign, and almost overnight the brand and Claudia became a sensation. She was consistently compared to Brigitte Bardot, partly because of her blonde hair and partly because of that effortless allure. People back then called her the new Bardot, but Claudia wasn't just a lookalike. She was rising quickly on her own merit, earning her first Vogue covers and stepping into Chanel shows in early 1990 at Karl Lagerfeld's invitation. What's remarkable is how she handled that whirlwind. She'd gone from shy law-obsessed teen to globe-trotting model in less than a year. One day she was studying for exams. The next, she was backstage in couture gowns or signing autographs in department stores across America. She remembered flying from city to city for guest promo events, doing signings in every major U.S. city, appearing on Jay Leno, Oprah, and Letterman, until she stepped out of an elevator near Central Park and someone asked, "Are you the Guess girl?" It hit her that she'd crossed into rock star territory.
Can we speak German?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those nights you get maybe once in 2 or 3 years where just everything goes right.
Throughout those early days, her life was an emotional roller coaster. She was suddenly in demand, but also far from home, and handling everything in a language that was only recently her second or third. She spoke German, learned English and French quickly, sometimes molding herself to what each shoot needed without losing herself. It was overwhelming, exciting, and entirely new. She described coming from Rheinberg, a place where nobody thought you'd wind up on Vogue, as a culture shock. And yet, despite all that, she stayed grounded. She'd always been the diligent, reserved person who planned on a legal career. That work ethic helped her manage expectations and critics. When tabloids treated her as cold or aloof, she remembered the law firm's structure and discipline, kept her head down, and let her work speak for her. Claudia's rise in the early 1990s was nothing short of explosive. She landed the Guess campaign in 1989, and almost overnight the bright-eyed law student from Rheinberg became the face of a defining brand. When she walked her first Chanel show in January 1990 for Karl Lagerfeld, it was clear she was becoming a force to be reckoned with. After Guess and Chanel came more: Versace, Balmain, Armani, Ralph Lauren. The roll call of designers she worked for reads like a who's who of fashion royalty. Her image was everywhere. Claudia graced more than 1,000 magazine covers, no joke, earning her a spot in the Guinness World Records as the model with the most covers ever. Imagine walking into any bookstore in the early 90s. Vogue, Elle, Harper's Bazaar, Cosmopolitan, Time. Claudia was the constant presence. For many people, she was the 1990s. Runway fees reflected her superstar status. In 1992, her paycheck reached about $20,000 per show, making her one of the highest paid models on stage. That was genuinely rock star money in fashion terms. She became known as the German Brigitte Bardot, a nod to her sultry, classic elegance, and few could argue with the comparison. But what's fascinating is that Claudia didn't stop there. At the peak of the supermodel era, alongside Naomi Campbell, Cindy Crawford, Linda Evangelista, and Christy Turlington, she stood on equal footing. They were more than models. They were icons, recurring faces in pop culture, breakthrough film cameos, and charitable endeavors. Claudia appeared in movies like Richie Rich and Zoolander, and signed an exclusive global contract with Revlon in 1992 that reportedly paid $6 million a year for 10 years, proof that her influence went way past runway lights. Despite the whirlwind, she maintained her poise. The media often criticized her, too cold, too poised, too German, but Claudia learned to let her professionalism do the talking. She was quiet off camera, letting her work do the talking, and it spoke volumes. By her early 20s, she was a global powerhouse, a luxe muse for designers, a trend-setting editor favorite, and a cash cow for advertisers. The supermodel is a label often overused now, but in Claudia's era, she earned it. Her style shaped editorials and TV segments. Her face was a unifying global emblem, chic, effortless, and unmistakable. At the height of her fame, the sheen of fashion revealed a darker undertone. In the early 2000s, a chilling discovery came to light, a £5 million plot to kidnap Claudia Schiffer. Though the details were never fully public, German police disrupted the plan before anything could happen. Thankfully, Claudia was never in physical danger. It was a shocking wake-up call. The world had embraced her beauty. Someone had embraced a terrifying obsession. For someone as private and composed as Claudia, it must have been psychologically devastating. The world watched, but hardly understood what she was going through. It revealed how fame often comes hand in hand with fear. Despite this threat, Claudia handled it quietly and thoughtfully. She remained composed, avoided media drama, and never dwelled publicly on what happened. It was never fodder for tabloid exploitation. The plot was real, serious, but overshadowed by her grace under pressure. She resumed modeling, worked on charity, and remained the same poised, professional icon. Though the kidnap scare never became headline news for long, it marked a turning point. It reminded the world that supermodel glamour comes with hidden danger, and a reality check for Claudia herself. She chose to rise above it, focusing on family, philanthropy, and career. That inner strength is part of what makes her story compelling. Claudia Schiffer's career shone brightly, but behind the scenes there was a layer of pressure few got to see. She was often criticized for being too thin, too cold, too German, harsh labels that came with being a top model in a world that prioritized images over inner life. I can't imagine stepping onto Elite's stage while tabloids dissect your face and mood every single day. But Claudia kept her distance, rarely giving interviews or sharing personal details, and that only fueled gossip and assumptions. Her choice to stay out of the spotlight left a vacuum that tabloids couldn't resist filling. When she didn't speak, rumors did. She was reserved, difficult, or uninterested. But the truth is, she built that protective wall to preserve her own peace. It's hard being under constant scrutiny. A smile, or lack of one, could be defined as chilly, even when she was just tired from another 14-hour shoot in Milan or New York. Over and over, any normal human reaction was interpreted as a sign of something bigger: emotional distance, diva behavior, or worse. Claudia cared about that. She spoke later about worrying how such imagery impacted young women, stressing that fashion meant beauty and health, not looking like a malnourished wreck. It hit close to home. She didn't want young fans to pursue unhealthy ideals simply because one of the biggest stars in the fashion world seemed to expect that from herself. The mental toll of being constantly objectified must have been heavy. Late-night interviews that turned into invasive questioning, photo shoots that focused more on her shape than her expression, and walking into every room knowing that someone was already judging her posture, her outfit, her face, even on her off days. She had to adapt to 3 languages for work: German, English, French, and yet every soft word in those tongues could be twisted into criticism. It's one thing to pose in front of a camera. It's another to do it while feeling like a product. That mental load, the sense of always performing, is draining. Claudia spoke about it in pieces, how the model's life could be isolating, especially when everyone's opinion is public. With each interview she skipped, she protected herself, but each avoided interview also fed the idea that she was distant and unreachable. Her mental strength really showed through in how she navigated those early years. While Naomi, Cindy, and Linda often gave sound bites and made moments for tabloid columns, Claudia took a different path. She let her actions speak for her, whether that meant closing the runway for Versace or quietly launching a cashmere line. That low-profile strategy kept her grounded and shielded her from drama and scandals that often swallowed her peers whole.
Camera on him right now. Liz, just take a shot of David Copperfield, please, in the green room.
Claudia Schiffer's love life has always had a spotlight, but never brighter than during her whirlwind romance with the world-famous magician David Copperfield. They first met when he pulled her from the audience during one of his mystical stage shows in Berlin in 1993, and she helped with illusions like Clearly Impossible and the classic Saw in Half stunt. Within weeks, they were inseparable, and by 1994, the pair were officially engaged. To the public, it seemed like the perfect fairy tale. Model meets magician, sparks fly, rings are exchanged. They appeared at glamorous events across Europe, hand in hand, frequently photographed in sunlit piazzas and on red carpets. However, underneath the fairy dust, rumors began swirling. French magazine Paris Match claimed the whole setup was orchestrated, that Claudia was paid to be there and the engagement partly a publicity stunt. Copperfield even sued the magazine for defamation, and a French court ruled in their favor in 1999. That's when Claudia described the stress as overwhelming, saying the lies were so unfair, and reiterated that she was honest about their bond. By late 1999, the engagement was quietly called off. A high-profile love story had fizzled, leaving her with a broken heart and many unanswered questions. In a way, that heartbreak brought clarity. It taught her that fame and love don't always align. She slowed her pace, started to retreat from celeb culture, and eventually met English film director Matthew Vaughn. Their relationship felt different, calmer, more grounded. They married in 2002 in Suffolk, England, on the grounds of their Elizabethan Tudor home, Coldham Hall. It was real, intimate, life-changing.
Sausages right here, part of my keychain, and a cloud that I got from my kids. My best friend always used to call me Cloudy.
Their family grew steadily. Son Casper in 2003, daughter Clementine in 2004, and youngest daughter Cosima in 2010. For Claudia, being a mother became priority one. She built a loving home with Matthew, filling it with pets and family traditions. Their life at Coldham Hall is intentionally quiet and protected. They live with dogs, cats, chickens, tortoises, and even welcome friendly ghosts inhabitants of the old manor. Family dinners, croquet, midnight ghost stories. It's a world away from flashing cameras and runway lights. In motherhood, Claudia found balance and purpose. She still models, designs, and works in film, but her children come first. She has spoken about growing more confident with age, understanding her priorities better, and embracing the slower rhythms of home life. She's no longer chasing glamour alone. She's nurturing a family, passing on values, and nurturing the next generation. Daughter Clementine has already appeared on a Vogue Germany cover, taking after her mother, and it's a gentle passing of the baton. Her relationship with Matthew exemplifies her mature side. Grounded, creative, mutual. He once described her as his litmus test, someone who keeps him grounded, complements his creativity, and brings calm to the chaos of filmmaking. That compliment, along with decades of partnership, tells a story about love that's evolved. Less about spectacle, more about shared life and quiet support. Claudia's shift from high-profile relationships to committed partnership and motherhood shows something beautiful, understanding what truly matters. She's braved heartbreak, met a man who respects her whole self, built a family and a home brimming with memory and love. That journey, from the limelight to the hearth, is not just personal growth. It's the story of a woman who chose the heart over the headline every single time. As Claudia moved into motherhood, she didn't just rest on her iconic 1990s fame. She reinvented herself as a creative force beyond the runway. Acting became a natural next step. She appeared in Richie Rich, Zoolander, and Love Actually, showing a playful side and proving she could thrive in front of the camera in front of it. Even more transformative was her role behind the scenes. As an executive producer on her husband Matthew Vaughn's films, including the Kingsman franchise, Rocketman, and Argylle, she shaped projects creatively and strategically. Vaughn himself has said she balances his ideas, offering feedback on scripts, costumes, and production, calling her my litmus test. That's not a side gig, it's a partnership where she's fully engaged in storytelling at a global scale. Claudia stepped back into business territory in 2011 with her own cashmere collection. That launch revealed her eye for luxury goods and personal style. Less than a decade later, she expanded into ceramics and dinnerware with brands such as Vista Alegre and Bordalo Pinheiro, creating elegant, meaningful pieces for everyday life. These ventures spoke volumes. She wanted her influence felt at home, not only on magazine racks. Eyewear followed, and in a fitting nod to her iconic status, Barbie released lifelike dolls modeled after her in signature Chanel and Versace looks. Celebrating her role as a fashion legend, these weren't just novelty toys. They were proof her style shaped generations.
Welcome to my home in the beautiful English countryside. I can't wait to show you around some of my favorite things. Okay, let's go.
Through it all, she maintained a sense of authenticity. She curated her English country home with her family, their pets, antiques, contemporary art, and personal history, trusting intuition over trends. She isn't hiding behind her image. She's creating it from the inside out. Claudia's resilience echoes a key lesson. Reinvention doesn't mean abandoning roots. It means building out from them. She moved from modeling to acting, to producing, to designing, retaining her quiet allure while expanding her voice. Now, at 54, she's not just remembered as a face. She's respected as an entrepreneur, creative partner, and curator of her own legacy. In 2023, Claudia Schiffer reminded the world that star power doesn't have an expiration date. At 53, she closed Versace's Spring 2024 show in Milan, and it wasn't just a runway moment, it was a statement. Wearing a stunning green and silver checkerboard gown that hugged her figure like a glove, she brought that signature 90s strut back into the spotlight. Imagine the buzz in the crowd as photographers whispered, "Is that really her?" And yes, it absolutely was. What made Claudia's return so powerful wasn't just nostalgia, it was timing. Milan Fashion Week had become a celebration of timeless beauty. Versace's cast included legends like Cindy Crawford, Naomi Campbell, and Helena Christensen, all walking alongside a new wave of models. But Claudia's entrance felt different. Donatella Versace invited her back not just as a former muse, but as a friend and icon whose presence carried decades of meaning. When Claudia stepped out, the room seemed to pause. Cameras snapped not to chase trend, but to capture history. The magic of that moment wasn't in flashy trends or dramatic theatrics. It was in her poise. She glided down that runway, wearing a floor-length metallic gown, crystal beads dancing under the lights with natural makeup and silver ribbon heels. She looked timeless, radiant, effortlessly elegant. It was a gift to fans who had followed her career from 1989 through Guess ads, Chanel shows, and all the way back to Versace.
To choose a piece of German culture that would go into my bag, it would have to be a huge pretzel. I love them. But I do have gifts from my friends in Germany.
Claudia herself described it simply. "It fits me like a glove," she told Vogue, adding that her pre-show routine of staying healthy and well-rested helped her feel ready. Her relationship with Donatella clearly goes deeper than fashion. It's familial. It's like you're coming into a warm hug of the Versace family, she shared, describing their bond during such reunions. The walk wasn't just about revisiting the past, it also signaled a new chapter. Young models like Kendall Jenner, Gigi Hadid, and Natalia Bryant shared the stage with Claudia, sending a subtle message: greatness lives beyond youth. In a culture obsessed with youth, she showed there's room, more than room, for talent that's matured, refined, and still luminous. That moment brought together generations, nostalgia for the 90s, and inspiration for today's creators. Vogue noted that her return felt perfectly timed to the cultural resurgence of supermodels, and described it as a flashback to the early 90s with a timeless twist. When Claudia walked off that runway, it felt like a quiet revolution. She reminded everyone that elegance is eternal, class never fades, and confidence can bloom with time. At 53, she closed Versace's show not as a cameo, but as a leader, an ageless benchmark, a nod to memory, and a message that fashion's future includes everyone's past. So, what are your thoughts on her story? Please let us know in the comments below.